And that link I will give you. You can share at your Facebook wall or
Oh,
with your friends.
okay, fine, I'll do that. So let me just
Hello, friends. Sorry, we are late. Having some problems, I guess. As I already mentioned, tonight, I'm going to host Azik Chowdhury, British-Bangladeshi novelist, born in Bangladesh and raised in the UK. His family moved there after the liberation war of Bangladesh. So, first of all, I would like to invite Azik here. Azik, hello, Azik. Hello, 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 Azik. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you now.
Well,
Yes.
I was just talking about the problems we are facing right now. I guess it will get normal in few
I hope,
minutes. Uh,
I hope
Azik
so.
bhai, how are you doing? What's the situation over there regarding this COVID and 19?
It's not it's good. It's getting better. Yesterday, I think they reported 55 deaths, and but I suppose the biggest problem might be that there have been lots of companies that have been shut down for 10 weeks, and they would suffer. Some of them may not survive these 10 weeks. So it's, I think the balancing act for the government is between people's lives and the economy. So that's the biggest challenge I think that the government are facing.
You see
So
here, yeah, please.
no, so just to give you on a personal level and rather silly level, but so I haven't had a haircut in 10 weeks. So,
You see
yeah,
mine.
Yeah. So because the barbershops are, the barbershops are all closed. So it's things like that. Restaurants are closed. Only food up until next week for 10 weeks. Only food shops were open, so people could get their food, but everything else was shut. So it's difficult times, and a lot of people have suffered as a consequence. I was doing a project, and that project was closed because of COVID. So it's impacting people in many more ways than just a social kind of way.
You see, almost same kind of problems that we're facing here in Dhaka or in
Yeah,
Bangladesh. But situation, we cannot go complete lockdown, or we cannot open at all. I mean, all over the country. So we are facing some crucial problems here back at home.
yeah. I was reading an article from India Times because I get that on via the web. And it was saying that the biggest problem for countries such as India, and I suppose that includes Bangladesh, Pakistan, where there are cities which have large populations, sometimes you have 4, 5, 6, and even more, many more people living under
Yeah,
one house. How do you socially distance? What is it? What can you do? It's not even feasible to do it, So
exactly.
that's the biggest problem that's Bangladesh will face is, if the coronavirus was to take a hold of the country, the death toll could be a phenomenal number, because people live so close to one another. That whole concept of keeping 2 meters apart. Sometimes you got three people living in a 2 meter space. So
Yes.
so that's I think the challenge for Bangladesh is the challenge is to try and contain the virus as best they can, and I think that's the
Azik
challenge
bhai,
for everyone.
uh, at least actually we are today. I think you were the first time. For the first time, you are this kind of show, talking with Bangladeshi people who are listening. You Bangladeshi people are listening with you. Have you ever been before that? This kind of show, talking about your
I've
literary
done
career.
this. My life is as a quiet one. I'm not a showbiz person. When I'm not working, when I'm not working, I tend to write, or I tend to do some sports as well. I enjoy doing sports, so I'll play football or go running or something like that. So yeah, I've never. This is the first time I've done anything like this. So, and I'll do my best. I'll do my.
I feel honored. Actually, the questions I'm going to ask you, this is very much personal question. I
Mm,
wanted to know a few things while reading your novels. Uh, Again, I want to say a few things to my friends who are listening right now or who will listen later. Azik,
yeah,
he has authored 2 novels so far, and the third one, I just came to know that third one he's working on right now. So we'll talk about these 2 novels and the one he's working on later. But first of all, Azik bhai, your first book came out in 2016, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you took so many years to publish your first book. What's the matter? You started late
I
in writing, or it just happened
think
that way?
no, it just happened that way. Just bringing up children takes time, and I work full time as well. And the other thing is that I I always found it difficult because uh, I'm not sort of I wasn't ever taught how to write fiction. In my job, in my day job where I work, I write reports, and
Okay.
they're very factual reports with data and analysis and all that kind of stuff. To write fiction was just such a leap for me. And I know I made some mistakes with the first novel, and that's why I sent you the cover, because there's a second edition of that first novel, and all of those mistakes have been. I've been working with a person that's doing their masters in English literature, and they've been teaching me like one-to-one, because literary writing, it's like a skill that just keeps developing. It's not a skill.
Yeah.
And so really, I think the reason I took so long is because I have children. I have two sons, and B, because my work. I was working in, I've worked in Africa, and I've worked in Europe, and I work all over. So by the time you get to work and come back, and it's hard going. But what I found when I was writing was that you use another part of the brain. My job is very logical, so to write, I can use another part of my brain, and that actually made me better at my job, being able to be more, rather not like a machine, but just to be to kind of be in a conversation and understand that. But so the main reason, just to answer your question quickly, is really because of work commitments and children commitments. And also, and the final one is probably an invisible one, but it's visible to me. It's getting the confidence to do it.
But
because I
Azik,
didn't study literature at university. I didn't have that awareness. I've read a lot. I read a lot all the time. I read. My biggest fear about reading too much is that you end up copying someone else's style. So,
but Azik, writing is in your blood, if I put it that way. Your mother, Saliha Chowdhury, is a very known writer back home. She is a
of
prolific
course,
writer, as must say. And your grandfather, from your mother's side, he was also a
yeah.
writer, but not that regular. But I happened to read some stuffs written by him. So it was in your blood. Don't you think that?
Perhaps. So one of the things I told you is I play a lot of sports because I enjoy playing sports. I still enjoy playing sports, and I said to one of the coaches, the football coaches, I said, "Can someone be a natural footballer?" So that was a question I asked. Can someone be a natural footballer? When they say this person has natural talent, and his answer was, they have a natural eye, but they have to still be taught. So while it's in my blood, the blood has to still travel down the right road. That's the point I make, is that just because my mother is a prolific and renowned writer in Bangladesh doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be the same, so because so I have to, writing's a funny thing. I mean, each book I get, this third book, I started it when lockdown started 10 weeks ago, and I've nearly finished it. So I think what happens, it's just like anything in life, as you do it more and more and more, it gets a little bit easier, and you start to see, even from the beginning, the mistakes and everything else. So it's a skill I'm still learning. I don't think it's a skill I'll ever fully master, because I don't think you can. I just don't think as a writer you can fully master the art of writing, because I think that's a huge leap. It's a bit like a Buddhist monk trying to find nirvana. Apparently you only find nirvana once you die. So so
you know,
maybe I'll become a perfect writer once I'm dead.
we have Hasan Azizul Haq, very renowned Bengali language writer, basically
Yeah.
fiction writer. He once told that writing is like breaking stones, and it's getting difficult day by day, because people think that day by day it's getting easier if you write continue. But he says that no, it's not. In times
I think
come, it it gets
Yeah, I
more
think
difficult.
the difficulty is that I've always believed that there are very few really original stories. I think most stories that need to be told, whether it's about love, whether it's about romance, whether it's about jealousy, whether it's about greed, all those stories have to some degree been told. And so what becomes more difficult is to try and set the story in a unique on a unique platform. I think that's the difficulty. And if you like that, yeah, I'd quite agree. It is like breaking stones, but eventually you might find a diamond amongst them all. You know, once you've broken enough stones and cleared the path, you might just find a diamond. And that's what you hope for, you know, that I tend to write things that just kind of fascinate me. You know, I don't have a particular genre of writing. I just things that fascinate me. You know, and it's usually things that I see on the news or read about and stuff like that. So yeah, writing is like breaking stones. But as I say, hopefully you'll find that amongst all the rubble, there's a diamond or a piece of gold or something, you know, that you can reach out and say, okay, well, I'll make this into a fine piece of jewelry,
Azik bhai,
you know.
I have read your first novel. Who are listening right now, I want to mention a few things about that novel. A
Yeah,
Muslim Boy. Your
yeah,
storytelling is so brilliant and captivating. The style itself is really fascinating. As a reader, I was I was really mesmerized. A stupendous experience I had while reading. In this novel, Shanti's family moved to London in
yeah,
1972 or
yeah,
around. The
yeah.
protagonist, Shanti Sadhan, is a Bangladeshi immigrant trying to fit into the British society. So I
That's
think
right.
that's the time you went to Britain after the Liberation War. So
Parallels, you know, because it was my first novel, I wanted to write something that I knew about. I
right,
didn't want to challenge myself and try to write something which I'd have to research, you know. So I knew about it. So a lot of people say, is this about your life? And what I'd say is that there is an emotional side to it, which is the emotions I felt growing up. But is it truly about my life? In part, it's truly about my life. The reason I kept Shanti's father's character as an engineer was just as a tribute to my own father, who passed away in 2013. So that's why I did that. But the what I wanted to get across to was the difficulty of growing up in Britain during that time, because it was a very difficult politically. It was a very difficult time for Britain, and there was a lot of problems with racism and hatred and things like that. And the British people were not as tolerant as they are now. Uh, so, you know, it was a different time, and so really, I wanted to write about something that it, you know. So
yeah,
people say to me, "Did the best character exist in the first book?" And I said, "No, no, that's just completely made up. I just made him up." And the reason I made him up was because I needed to have someone. Otherwise, I think it would have been a very depressing book, you know.
yeah,
So I needed someone to balance the story with humor, and the story with realism, and the story of and to kind of show that, you know, you can give someone fatherly love without actually being their father, in just how you are towards them. So people think, oh, who's Beppe? Can we meet him? I said, no, he doesn't exist. He's just in my mind, you know. So
so
I
so
just made him.
it seems autobiographical fiction, sort of a Muslim Boy.
It's in part, or you know, in part, as I say, the emotional journey that I took is quite true, but the characters are all pretty made up, other than the family unit. I kept the family unit the same. I created in the book, the sister is there, the mother is there, the father is there. And the reason I did that is that I've never had a brother, so I don't know what it's like to have a brother. I could have made the sister a brother, but I don't know how you converse with an older brother. I know how I converse with my boo-boo, but I don't know how. So I had to keep that real because, but everything else is pretty much made up. You know, even the name of the school is made up. The teachers' names, the teachers are made up. Although I took some of their characters, you know, and so a lot of it is, you know, I would say about 70% of it is just fiction. So yeah,
which means implies that you picked some true stories with fictitious
yeah,
characters. That's all right. My question is
yeah.
how you
I
dealt
think I think
reality with fiction. I mean, how you
yeah,
picked reality with fiction, how you mingled with this.
I think it is. It's and most writers do that to some degree. They have to do that to some degree. You know, if you're having a bad experience with a rickshaw puller and you think it makes for a funny story afterwards, when the anger has left you and you're home and you're sitting down, and you think, oh my God, that rickshaw walla was just mad, you know. And then you think about that and you think, actually, I'd love to write that as a short story about the mad rickshaw walla, you know, because in the actual moment that you're having this confrontation with that guy, you're not thinking that way, but afterwards. And so you take all the characteristics of that guy and create a story around him. So I think everybody takes a little bit. You have to take from life. You have to take from life, because I think stories have to convey something, which is the emotions of the character. And I think if you've never loved, if you've never lost, if you've never been hurt, if you've never, you know, and all of those things, and you're writing about those things, then you could get it very wrong, you know. So,
Does
you know,
does
the other, yeah.
please you may go on.
No, no, that's it. That's all I was going to say, is that actually I think most writers take something from reality. They do take something from, you know, I watch some things on YouTube sometimes, and some writers will post something or other, and they'll talk about their characters that they've written about, and they said, yeah, I knew a guy like that. I actually knew a guy like that. And so I based it around this guy, but I exaggerated his kind of character to make it more funny or to make it more tragic, you know. So it was so I think most of us we can walk through life, and as long as we're communicating with people, I think, you know, I can go to the shops and I can see someone standing at the shops, and I just think, I wonder what their story is, you know. So
Yeah,
you don't know what their story is. You see a person, I don't know, struggling sometimes, and you just think, wonder what their story is. How did they end up struggling like that, you know? Or you see the one thing I do see a lot sometimes, I see very old people, and I'll always talk to them in the street, because they get lonely. In England, the old aren't sort of cared for in the same way that they are in Bangladesh or India or Pakistan, or you know, the Asians have we have a respect for elders. Not to say that British people don't have a respect for elders, but the elderly can have quite a lonely life. So then I'll talk to an old guy, and he's maybe has a walking stick or something, and I look at him, and because I used to do that with Abba, because I remembered Abba getting to the point where he needed a walking stick. And I look at this old guy and I think, at what point did you need a walking stick? Prior to that, what were you like when you walked? Were you tall? Were you proud? Did you stick your chest out? Were you a strong man? Because I can't tell right now. What were you like? So I think stories just come from observation, and observation is life. And so therefore, if you're taking stories from observation, it must be true to life, you
yeah,
know?
definitely. As if when I finished the novel, just
Yeah.
the question came in my mind that you named the novel A Muslim Boy. There are boys
Mm.
from multicultural and religious backgrounds, and
Yeah.
these boys play a vital role in the novel. So why
Yeah.
you picked the name A Muslim Boy? Though the central character, yeah, I understand, he is a Muslim boy.
Yeah. So I could have come up with many other things, but the reason being is that it's the struggle that a lot of boys from Muslim households face. It's a lot. It's the struggle that they face in being a Muslim. That's the struggle that they face. It's not the struggle of being born into a Muslim house. Well, that can be a struggle as well, but the struggle they face is how to be a Muslim. And I suppose that tells you that if, I think what I was trying to say in the story is that he may not act like a Muslim.
Right.
He may have habits that Muslims don't have, but it doesn't make him bad. It doesn't make him a bad person, is what I'm trying to say. So I think what I was trying to say is that to be a Muslim boy in a place like England or America or anywhere outside of a predominantly Muslim country, you have to have a blended Muslimness. If that's, I don't know if it's a word, Muslimness, but you have to have a blended version of Islam, because to sometimes survive. That's not to say that your faith is in question. That's nothing to do with faith. So what I was trying to say is that in actually, this is a Muslim boy, but he's outside of a predominantly Muslim country, and he has to manage himself. Now, what he does behind closed doors is one thing, but when you step out of the door and you go into the wider world, you have to put on a British or American or European. You have to put on that version of you, if you know what I mean. So, sorry, carry on.
Azik bhai, do you think that things have been changed after so many years? You know, the 9/11 that took out important role. So that played
Yeah,
important role. So do you think that things have been changed? I mean, the stereotyped kind of thing.
I think things are changed, hugely changed. But I think if we're talking about Islam, I have a very good Irish friend, and we worked together for a few years, he and I. And I said to him, you know, and he's from Northern Ireland, and I asked him, I said, you know, is everybody a terrorist in Northern Ireland? And he just looked at me and laughed, and he said, are you crazy? He said, is every Muslim a terrorist? And I said, no, you must be mad. I said, 99.9% of all Muslims are peace-loving people. I said, you know, they're tolerant, they're peace-loving people, and they'll accept anyone. But I think what happens is that when something like 9/11 happens, or anything, there is this tendency for the Western world, whether that's America or Europe or anywhere, to kind of say that all Muslims are terrorists. And I think that's really dangerous when something like that happens. But I think here in the UK, you know, the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan,
Yeah.
is a Muslim, and I think that tells you everything you need to know about tolerance in England. It's so much better than when I was growing up. The intolerance in England was just horrible when I was growing up. You know, people were attacked, and you know, Asian people were attacked, black people were attacked. So it was a horrible place then. But now, if you think about it, it's become a much more inclusive place. But every time something happens, every time there's a terror attack or anything like that, there does seem to be a tendency to point the finger and say all Muslims are this or all Muslims that. And I think that's the inherent danger. That it's like me saying all Irish people are terrorists, are IRA, you know, and
Yeah.
my Irish friend Robert was just laughing at me going, are you crazy? Because do you not think we've got lives? You know, so, you know, so I think that's where you have to be a little bit careful. But it's much better. It's so much. I mean, it's great. It's a good country to be in right now. My children haven't sort of suffered with anything, so you know,
So
And
what are
they
the
might
readers?
not I suffered with anything when I was growing up.
What are the readers' reactions? After reading this novel, especially the native British people.
Yeah. Sorry,
I want to
what was? Yeah, go
readers'
on.
reaction.
They couldn't the reviews I've had about 9 or 10 reviews on Amazon. They've all been good. They've all been 5-star reviews. And a lot of my European friends, a lot of my British friends have read them and said, yeah,
Oh,
we knew. Yeah, they were okay with it because I didn't in any way, shape or form sort of make them look to be stupid or anything like that. I grew up in I grew up in a very working class part of London. And so it was a sort of place where people were tough. You had to be tough. And so it was one of those things. So often the language was tough, and the people were rough. But they all had a big heart. And no, none of my European friends or none of my British friends took any offense to anything I wrote in there because they just
yeah.
knew that it was true. It was true. The characters I'd built up were true.
Azik bhai, coming to your second novel, The
Yeah,
Refugee.
yeah.
This one is based on the turmoil in the Middle Eastern country. The
I,
protagonist Naguib,
I didn't name
Naguib,
any country. Yeah,
any
I
country,
just
right,
based.
right,
No, I've not once mentioned a country in the book.
right.
And the reason being is that I read so much before even starting that book. I read everything I could get my hands on the Suez Crisis. I bought a photographic journal of the Suez Crisis. I read everything around Syria. I've read everything around, not everything, but lots, enough to give me information. One of the things I found that despite Suez being 1953 or whenever it was, and Syria being still going on, the pain and suffering people felt were exactly the same. So time doesn't erode pain and suffering. Time doesn't make pain and suffering any different. So the story was based around what
Hello, Azik bhai, can you hear me? Hello. আচ্ছা, আমার মনে হয় আজিক ভাই প্যানেল থেকে বের হয়ে গেছেন, কোনো সমস্যা হয়েছে। আমরা তাকে খুব শীঘ্রই পেয়ে যাব আশা করি। আমি একটু অপেক্ষা করছি।
Sorry about that.
হ্যাঁ,
Very
হ্যালো।
sorry, Mojaffor.
No,
Sorry.
it
What was the
happens.
just technical glitches, and I'm not as technical as I wish I was. But so what was the question you left me with? And I was just about to answer it.
Well, we're talking that how you came to the story, the
okay.
Refugee novel. How you came to the story and how you managed to write it.
The story came about because I read the papers every day, and online papers, and I started seeing images of refugees that were suffering. And one of the things I found was that many of them, and I saw this one photograph, and the photograph was of an old guy. He was sitting on a wall. His clothes were dusty and dirty. His hair was grey and had dust in it and everything else. And to me, that picture was just so very, very powerful, because he was sitting on this broken wall and behind him were these broken buildings. And he looked like just an old man on his own. So that became really powerful to me, that image. And I just wondered what happens when, in my mind, I wondered, how would I feel if my whole family left me? And I had to sort of live. So the story kind of came to me in that image of the old man. But what I didn't want, I wanted to make him a strong character. You know, I wanted to make him I didn't want him to be beaten by life. So I wanted to create a strong character that survives, that goes on, that actually flourishes. But that's where it came about. You know, had to do a lot of research about that as well. And yeah, so the story just came about from an image I saw, which kind of really moved me. Just the tragedy of the situation really moved me. So that's that. And in my mind, the story was just kind of growing and growing and growing. And then one day I just sat down with my notebook and started scribbling things down and trying to kind of work out what I wanted to say. I think that's where I start with stories, is I try and figure out what it is I'm trying to say as a message. And then I just write. And what, you know, sometimes you can try to be too clever. But I think if you just write in a fluid way, all the things you want to say will come naturally, you know. So that's really how that's the process I follow, and usually it's something that captivates me or moves me and really tugs at my heart that makes me write. Yeah.
Azik bhai, you know, there are so many books on refugee crisis, right? Like I remember the one of Mohsin Hamid, Exit West, Mohsin Hamid, Pakistani diaspora writer, and Refugee, the name you also put in your novel, by Alan Gratz. This particular novel, this revolves around three main characters from different eras, like Nazi Germany and Cuba, then Swiss and Syria.
Yeah.
Land of Permanent Goodbyes, another one by Atia. So many. I mean, I want to say so many novels. So my point is, what interests you to most to write down this particular novel? I mean, what you wanted to contribute to this particular theme?
I just wanted to contribute that what I wanted to say to anyone that read it is refugees on the whole are people that survive. They're not people that are beggars or down and out or anything like that. There is a life that they had before they became a refugee. And it's really for us to respect that life, because, you know, you can have a refugee. There are people in England who are refugees right now who are cleaning cars and doing things like that, but they might have been school teachers once. They might have even been, I don't know, engineers or electricians or something like that, you know. So they might have had And it's to kind of recognize that when you give someone the tag of refugee, you don't forget that there is a life behind that person. And that's what I wanted to try and say, and to say, look, they can survive, and they do survive. You know, I work in England. I work with Syrian Refugee Council. I work with them, and so it is something that interests me, because I'm just very conscious of the fact that in some countries, in America, I think this is the case. Certainly in England, it's the case that when somebody says, you know, they have a refugee status, it's very difficult. Life for them is very difficult in this country. So what I wanted to portray as well is that, okay, life in my imaginary country is difficult, but it can be lived. You know, you can survive there. And I know that in Syria, you can't. There are parts of Syria you just can't survive because it's bombed. You know, the government and others have bombed the hell out of it. So if you think about that, then that's maybe not true in that sense. But what I'm trying to say is that refugees don't need a handout; they just need a chance. And it's about giving them that chance because they have that capability.
Azik bhai, one thing I just want to remark here: the people from Middle East or the Muslim all over the world blame America for their refugee crisis, mostly. But the irony is they seek shelter in America at the end. They want to survive
Yeah,
there. So, and surviving there is not an easy thing, because you portrayed there in the novel that new struggle just starts when they step in
yeah.
America. So my question is, you worked on researched in this field, so I want to know personally, what's the big game or plot behind this? I mean, you know, the blame
I
issue,
know. I mean,
and then you go there for
yeah.
shelter.
I think there's so many conspiracy theories. It's, you know, and this is a really delicate. You know, this is a subject that I don't feel qualified to talk about. What I will say though is, if you think about any country, is, you know, I'm just trying to find the right words here, because America for me doesn't build an empire. It doesn't build an empire in the conventional sense that the British built an empire.
Right.
But what America tends to build is economic empires. And so as long as they have, you know, America wants to have influence in all the major economies. And I think part of it is about that, is where people say this is an American thing. This is started by America. So as soon as a nation like America wants to have an economic impact on another nation, it has to Americanize that other nation. As soon as you Americanize that other nation, you lose part of what that nation originally was. You know, so instead, you know, if you think about parts of the Middle East, or parts of Asia even, where the Americans try to influence what happens, then the children, the generations, not the old generation, the new generation become this, you know. When I was last in Dhaka 3 years ago, I was talking to some guys at a shopping mall in Dhaka,
Okay.
and I thought they were American. And I said, how did you learn to speak like that? And they said, just by watching TV, you know. So for all intents and purposes, America can create little America everywhere it's got an
Yeah,
influence. And as
that
soon
does.
as you as soon as you change the social behavior of a country to be more like your own, then that country ends up losing its identity to some degree, not totally, but to some degree. And so that's all it is that the global world that we live in now, especially with the internet and everything else, you know, there are kids in Bangladesh, there are kids in Pakistan, there are kids in Nepal, wherever, you know, Bhutan,
Everywhere.
whatever you want to say. they're looking at the internet, they're watching these American kids having a great time and thinking, we want some of that. We'd like some of that. Their parents are saying, no, 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 we don't want you to have any of that. So suddenly, you're creating this. So that then creates a problem. So I basically think that America has created economic empires. It doesn't own any borders, but it owns a lot of industry. And in creating those economic empires, its influence becomes broader. So what tends to happen then is that there's a group of people who resent this. So, there'll be a group of people that'll just say, get the Americans out of here. So that's when those groups of people, and usually those groups of people are older, and the older people are usually the ones in power, and they turn around and turn against America, or people turn against America and everything else. But also there's another problem in certain countries, where you have high levels of what's the word I'm looking for? Where people aren't educated, where you have high levels of uneducated people, or people that can't read and write. It's very easy for a priest or a mullah, or whatever you want to call it, to turn around and blame all Americans, because he knows that the people he's talking to can't read and write a newspaper. So they can't form an opinion. They'll listen to what he has to say, whether it's right or wrong. And so then what happens is that you get this big backlash of people saying anti-American slogans and everything else. I think it's for every country really to turn around and say when they want to be influenced by America and when they don't. That's every country's right to do that. But America can be, America's, the other part about America is it's very powerful. It's a very powerful nation. So it gives these loans, I was reading an article that said that America had a trade agreement with Bangladesh, that Bangladesh couldn't sell its rice. It couldn't export its rice. And Bangladesh that's its biggest cash crop, is rice. So, that got quashed. But for years, because of the loans and the aid that Bangladesh was receiving from America, it could only sell its rice inside Bangladesh. Now, there's a lot of rice growers in Bangladesh who are thinking, bloody Americans, so, yeah, exactly. So, so if you're gonna create an economic empire, any empire creates hatred. What is it? Mahatma Gandhi said that I would rather have, most people would rather have their own bad government than the good government of another country, so, or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but the words to that effect. So I think it's for the government of each country to know how far they're willing to let America influence their economy. And so it's really, I think it's every government of every country, whether that's Bangladesh, whether that's Pakistan, or whether that's India, it's for them to decide if allowing America to come into that economic space, their own economic space, is a healthy thing or a bad thing. Now, in countries where you have Islam, because Islam is not just a religion. To me, Islam is not just a religion, it's a way of life. If you have an economic influence that actually impacts that way of life, then you're going to have problems, and you're going to have civil problems. And that's kind of where my view is. I don't think I've been to America. I don't think Americans are bad. I think the only bad thing about them is the amount of influence they have on different economies. I think that's the only bad thing I'd say. But as a people, they're lovely. When you go to America, you meet lovely people all the time. So from that point of view, it's just that economic influence that they have, which is, I think, unhealthy.
Definitely, economy determines everything. But going back to the refugee crisis, I want to mention one thing. You know better. Bangladesh hosts now the world's largest refugee camp. which is Rohingya camp.
Yes.
Hmm. Do
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
do you have any plan to look into this thing? And I mean, in your
Yeah.
fiction,
I'm
maybe, or in your other works.
well, the thing is, I've written a few that my biggest problem in writing anything about Bangladesh is uh, is that funny. It's a funny thing, but I understand certain aspects of it. I understand a lot of it, and when I go back, I I love it there. I love going back. I love seeing family. But for me, it's never a holiday, because when I go back, I'm at an auntie's house in the morning, and uncle's house in the afternoon, and people are taking me here, there, which is great, but it's not a holiday as such. But what I want the thing I don't understand always, because Amma is a literary person, um, is I don't really understand. I tend to know more about other areas than I do about my own country. I don't understand the common touch, so
Yeah.
I don't understand, for instance. So one of the things I do watch on YouTube a lot of times, I watch Bangladeshi natok,
Oh,
because I want to. Yeah, but some of them I find very melodramatic, very dramatic. Some of them, people get angry, and then they just,
it's
you
sort
know,
of basic character, Melodrama is there in
and
our blood. It's in
yeah,
our culture.
yeah. So to me, they don't seem very real. You know, what I'd like to do is maybe, I don't know, just spend some time with a rickshawala, and ask him what's it what does he think of his life, what does, in as simple as way as possible, just to say, what do you think, where do you want to be, what do you want to do you have any dreams and hopes, and what are they, because my family and my surrounding family are, they're all they're comfortable, they're not struggling. I I like things where I can, when I can see someone struggle and come out of it. I think they're hugely heroic if they can do that. And I think that's what The Refugee is about, is to see someone struggling but come out the other side still as a whole person. I think that's the act of heroism, that if you can, you kind of live life against the odds, and you can still sort of be victorious in life, just in living, not victorious as in winning a race or something like that, but that's not what I mean, but just victorious in the art of living, the art of happiness. You can carry on doing that. So for me, Bangladesh is a bit of a weird place for me to go sometimes, because I'm so sheltered when I go there that I don't get a chance to mix with just everyday people, just everyday people. Like here in the UK, I'll go to the shops, I'll talk to someone, I'll see someone in the street, and they'll ask me directly, and you get to converse, and you see people in different walks of life. My life in Bangladesh, when I go back, because I go back as a visitor, and I might say to I'm just going to go up the road. And she'll say, no, 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 Jewel will come with you. You can't go on your own. This is Bangladesh. And I think, what's going to happen? Is someone going to kidnap me? What the hell well, somebody might kidnap me. I don't know. But what can happen? I'm a Bangladeshi boy. My Bengali too bad. If I just want to go up the road, what? No, no, Jewel, or Sange Jao, or Sange Jao. I mean, I just like Jewel is my shadow. He's like my shadow. Bless him. He's a
Look,
lovely
she
boy.
behaves like her mother, but the
Yeah,
situation is
yeah,
not that bad
yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah. So, and I know that it is, there are risks. Just, I don't know, just if you go around, the streets are so busy and everything else, that
Yeah,
there are
it is.
risks that I'm probably not aware of. But so for me, I just like to go walking with someone. I'd like to, I don't know, I'd like to go to Dhaka University and just sit in a classroom when there's a lecture, just as a guest, because I want to experience what my mum and dad experienced, you know, what Abba and Amma experienced at Dhaka University. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see what it felt like to be in that classroom when they were children, you know, or when they were young people. You know, they're the sorts of things I really want to do. You know, they're the things I want to. I really want to talk to a rickshawala and just ask him, you know, just ask him some questions and I don't know, just say, look, take me. You know, you don't have to take me anywhere, but if you were to take me somewhere, how much would it cost? And he'll say, that'll be 20 taka. I'll just say, take 20 taka, but just talk, come and have a cup of tea with me and talk.
So, Azik bhai, when your family left Dhaka, what was
Yeah.
your reactions to that?
I was very young, don't forget, I was very young. So it's very hard to say what was my reaction. My biggest difficulty was wearing shoes. That was my biggest difficulty, because in Bangladesh, I wore sandals, or often I played outside bare feet. So just wearing shoes was a difficulty for me. That's my biggest memory. So, but I think the weather has always been and now I'm used to it. Now I'm used to it. But originally, then the weather. The other thing I think that sort of stays in my mind is that we struggled as a family. We really struggled. We lived in a shared house. We had 2 rooms in that house. We shared a bathroom with the other people in that house. You go from Dhaka, where you had someone that would, cook for you and clean for you and those sorts of things, to suddenly finding yourself in 2 rooms, and they weren't big rooms either, So those things were a struggle. I think the thing I remember most is maybe Amma's struggle.
Yeah.
I think that stays in my mind. That's like for me, that's like a wound that never really heals. That how Amma struggled, and she missed her. Because for a woman, she was at the time maybe in her
But
late 20s.
one thing I was just let my viewers know that your mother Saliha Chowdhury was Dhaka University teacher at the time
Yes.
when she left.
Yeah. So she left.
Yeah.
When she left this life, which had humor, which had intellectual conversation, which had friends, cousins, relations, the students asking her questions, intellectually challenging her every day. She left all of that behind to quite a depressing life, to come to England. I think that for me is probably the biggest thing I remember, is how much Amma struggled. Because Bubu and I were young enough to make friends.
Yeah.
We kind of did all. Abba was out working. Amma did get a job eventually, but Abba was out working. And so he was busy with that. So Abba, Bubu, and me, we all had lives. But Amma sometimes just, and she suffered a lot. She suffered a lot. She missed her family like crazy. And then she couldn't come back when her father died. And that was another blow. She couldn't come back when her father died and things like that. So I think the biggest thing about coming to this country was not my own personal impact. I think I coped quite well.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing was that it sometimes, because we weren't 100% happy living that life. I think my biggest memory is that the atmosphere in the house could sometimes be very dull, and for a child,
Yeah, I
that's
get
really
it.
difficult. For a child needs laughter, a child needs play, a child needs all of that. So for me, that was probably my biggest memory, is recognizing that not often, but sometimes the atmosphere in the house could be very dull and a little bit depressing, because but things steadily got better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Azik bhai,
So shoes.
coming.
I'm wearing sandals. So
At home. Azik bhai, coming to your literary tradition, who
yeah.
are the Bangladeshi writers you have read so far?
There are, I mean, in England, I haven't read any, I must confess, and I'll do this just to emphasize. I'm a Bangla, মানে লেখাপড়া বেশি ভালো না, মানে just basic level আমি পড়তে পারি, সেই জন্য আমি আমার work আমি just আমার একটা বই আছে যে poetry লেখছে, সেইটা আমি পড়ছি, কিন্তু otherwise আমি
but that is written in English, right?
yeah, written in English. So I've made an
Azik bhai, yeah, you are back. Azik bhai, your sound, I can hear. Oh, it's all right.
About that. So can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's okay.
Technical problems. I don't know what's happened there. Something's got muted. Just one moment. Mojaffor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know what's happening.
No, it's all right here. You can just fix your mobile somewhere so that you can relax.
I can't hear you.
Because if you hold it all the time, it will. Yeah.
Let me try. Give me 1 minute. Just give me
Sure,
1
sure.
minute.
Okay. আপনারা যারা শুনছেন থাকবেন আমাদের সঙ্গে। আজিক ভাইয়ের কিছু সমস্যা হচ্ছে, আমরা একটু ঠিক করে আবার তাকে স্ক্রিনে আনছি। Hello, Asif bhai. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. So I made a list of all those people I've read. So I read something by Tamima Anam called
She writes in English.
Yeah, she writes in English. Zia Haider Rahman, I've read his, and Monica Ali's Brick Lane.
Brick Lane.
So these
Brick
are
Lane,
all,
right.
yeah, so these are all sort of Bengali speaking writers, but they are expats like me. You know, they're kind of diasporic writers, if you like, to some degree. So so I've read a few things by Bangladeshi speaking, because they could be from Kolkata or somewhere like that. So, you know, Bangladeshi speaking writers. But as I said, I watch Bangladesh Natok on TV.
Yeah.
I find it a bit too dramatic at times. And, but otherwise, you know, because it's easier for me to understand the spoken word than it is the written word, you know, especially if it's in Bangla. That's my biggest problem, is my lack of. Amma said she's going to take me in hand and teach me Bangla properly and everything else. So
Asif bhai, I wonder, you were born in Bangladesh, raised in the UK. So it's a complex situation because how do you define culture for you, and how do you see not having a native identity, or
Culture
what?
for me,
Okay,
well, I think culture is a strange phenomenon. And the reason I say that is that culture to me kind of defines the way you should behave in a set of circumstances or in a family or whatever. But what I've learned is that it doesn't matter whether you're from Bangladesh or anywhere.
yeah,
You all have an inherent knowledge of how to show respect, to be respectful of others, etc. You know, somebody once said to me, "Do you know the Ten Commandments?" And because I wrote about them in the first book about the Ten Commandments, and I said, "I know them." I said, "But the funny thing is that would we break the commandments if we didn't have them? If there were no such things as the Ten Commandments, would we know it's wrong to kill another person? Would we know it's wrong to steal from somebody else?" And so I think culture is linked heavily to religion. And that's where I have the problem. And I think you can live a cultural life without
yeah.
any tags to religion. And that's kind of what I've done. So if you try to live, so it's not that I don't believe in Allah. I do, of course, I believe in Allah. Well, some people would say, why, of course? But I do. I just have this view that I believe in Allah. But what I
Azik bhai,
tend to do,
I want to
sorry,
interfere just a few seconds because I
yeah,
have to plug my charger into my laptop because it's going
no
off.
problem.
So few seconds,
No,
please. Hold on.
no, let's go ahead.
Azik bhai, আছে? হ্যালো, হ্যাঁ আশিক ভাই, হ্যালো, হ্যালো, হ্যালো। আশা করি আজিক ভাই শিগগিরই আমাদের সঙ্গে চলে আসবেন। যারা আমাদের সঙ্গে একটু লেট জয়েন করেছেন তাদের জন্য বলিয়ে রাখি যে আজিক ভাই বাংলাদেশি ব্রিটিশ নভেলিস্ট, ঔপন্যাসিক। তার দুটি উপন্যাস আমাজন থেকে প্রকাশিত হয়েছে। একটি হলো মুসলিম বয়, যেটি নিয়ে আমরা আগে কথা বলেছি, এবং দ্বিতীয় উপন্যাস রেফিউজি। সেই উপন্যাসটি নিয়ে আমাদের কথা হচ্ছিল। তারপরেই তিনি তার তৃতীয় উপন্যাস এখন লিখছেন। সেই উপন্যাসটি নিয়ে আমরা কিছু জানবো আশা করি, এবং আমরা খুব অনেক ১ ঘন্টা আমরা শোতে আছি। আশা করি যে within next 30 minutes will be done.
Okay.
Azik bhai, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, just going back to what I was saying is that, so for me, culture is, my culture is just be a decent human being. beyond that, I don't question anything else. And that's all I try to do, is to respect my fellow humans and whatever culture they come from. So I don't really, but the one thing I do understand is that, if you like, my culture has been, sorry, there we go. So my culture has been somewhat because I had to create me living in England. I can't be typically Bangladeshi, and I can't be, but I lean more towards being typically English, so because that's just the way it is. So the one thing I noticed is that when I was in Dhaka last time, I was talking to a guy, and he was saying he was with me and my nephew, and he looked at my nephew and he said, "Ejon ki Bideshi." He didn't think I was Bangladeshi, So I was like, oh, no. I looked at him and said, "No, no,
how
no.
does it feel actually?
That feels a little bit, because that does feel a little bit strange when you're in the country you were born, but that country doesn't recognize you as one of them. That does feel a little bit strange. I must admit that. I mean, it
Azik
doesn't.
bhai,
I mean, I can, but I've been in
one thing,
England now for 5 years. So nearly 50 years.
Azik bhai, one thing. Akram Khan, a dancer choreographer living in
Yeah,
UK,
yeah, yeah,
maybe. Akram Khan said in his one production, Desh, that he is no more Bangladeshi because he left the country at your age,
yeah,
and he will never be a British. That is the dialogue there inserted in the drama.
yeah, yeah. That there is some truth in that, because unfortunately, when I'm in Bangladesh, I'm just a brown man amongst many brown men. When I'm in England, I'm a brown man amongst many white men. And so I stick out, just as a white man would if he traveled to Bangladesh. People would be looking at him going, "Who's that? Itake, itake, itake." They'd be looking. So it's the same thing. So really, you have to accept that you
But
can never really be accepted. But the biggest challenge might be that you're actually not really accepted in either country. so
but but that is
so
that is
you have to create, yeah. So yeah, my
Azik bhai, that
children
is
accept.
culture that we are talking
Yeah,
about. But there is
yeah,
another
yeah, yeah,
thing, history. Which history? That means we celebrate here Pohila Boishakh or
yeah,
Language Day, and
yeah.
people, British people, maybe in that particular day, celebrate some other their own history or their respective culture. So this is you are in between.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the British have different holidays. So when it's Eid, they make a mention of it on the TV, but there's nothing else. There's nothing else that happens. Nothing special that happens. For us, for everyone here in England, is it's around all the different aspects of their history. It's around the Christian. It's more about the Christian religion and things like that. So no, but you're right. Culture is it's a funny thing, and I guess the truth is that I probably wouldn't fit in completely in Bangladesh, and but I fit in more in England, because I guess that's to do with my
Yeah,
friends that I have as well. That if I went to Bangladesh after nearly 50 years in England,
yeah,
uh, would I be able to create deep friendships that I've got here? Because after 50
yeah,
years, there are friendships that form.
yeah.
And so you have to kind of, so there is that. There is that. I've always wanted to spend more time in Dhaka if I can,
But Azik Bhai,
because, yeah,
Azik Bhai, one thing that you talked about, we talked about Tahmin Anam. Anam wrote fictions, two fictions, on Bangladeshi setting, on the Liberation War, to be specific. So, do you have any
Yeah,
plan to write a novel on Bangladeshi setting?
I'd like to more than that. Um, I'd like to write something about everyday people. I don't know if I'm going to write anything about. I suppose I could write about Bangladesh, the civil war. I could write about that, but I would rather write about everyday people and the struggles they go through. Because unfortunately, for me, as I said to you, I like people, I like to see people struggle and overcome that struggle. That shows that they are heroic,
Yeah.
you know. And I like those characters a lot. That's not to say then the Bangladesh Civil War was a struggle, you know. But I'm trying to. I can't remember now, but there was a story I read ago, and I think who directed it. It was a film by Satyajit Roy, and I can't remember the name of it.
Pother Pasali or Pother Pasali.
Might have been. Yeah, so I've read, and I've seen some of these films, and I have them on DVD. Some of them films that I enjoy seeing, and I like to see, how people live in a gram, in a village. My family had a house. My mother's side of the family had a house in Bogra. I love Bogra. I absolutely love Bogra. I love Bogra more than I love Dhaka. And then I visited Khulna, where my uncle was principal at Khulna University or Khulna College. It was technical college
Yeah.
back then. And I visited Khulna Technical College, and I loved it there, and I loved Bogra. I actually don't like, Dhaka is really mad, it's busy and everything else. But there's a lot of interest in Dhaka in so much as that you see a country that's
And also we
coming.
have very interesting history.
Oh God, yeah. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of history. When I started to, when you said you wanted to do this interview, I started reading about Bangladeshi literature. I mean, my God, I couldn't believe I didn't know this stuff. But I went back to the 1700s. I was reading everything I could
Yeah.
find just in case you asked some tricky questions. So so I was, there's the period before Tagore and all of that, and I was
Yeah,
reading
yeah,
about all of
1000 and almost 2000
yeah,
years back.
exactly. So I think Bangladesh and Bengali speaking people have an inherent nature for telling stories, whether they were verbal stories told in the middle of a gram. An older man would sit
Yeah.
and tell the stories of evening before they had radio and television, because that's how they spend their evenings. But that the storytelling capability of the average Bangladeshi is very, very interesting, very, very deep. It's actually almost inbuilt, because sometimes when you say to little children, okay, I'll tell a story and then you tell me one, and something like that, and I've done that with my children throughout. So my youngest son used to say to me, tell me a story. So I'd say to him, okay, let's think of an animal. And he'd say, right, okay. I said, now, have you thought of an animal? Write down the animals, what animal it is. He goes, and then think of a number. And he'd write down, let's just say 6. And I'd say, think of a name. And he'd always say his own name, Ben. I said, so now I've got a 6-legged dog called Ben, and I have to tell you a story about a 6-legged dog called Ben. So, but I think that ability to tell stories is a Bengali cultural identity. So, I think that's part of our identity, is that ability to tell stories. I think we all do it. If you
Yeah.
say to a rich puller, you can't charge me 20 taka just to take me to Newmarket, and he'll look at you and he'll tell you his life story to justify that 20 taka. you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, and you get the life story of that rickshawala just for the sake of 20 seconds. So I just thought, if I go equipped with, you know, to these villages and I just ask people, so just tell me a day in the life of
And
your life.
Azik bhai, people in Dhaka would love to share their own privacy or own story with you. They would love to do it.
I'd love to do that too. I'd love to just sit there and say, listen, and I'm quite fair. I'd turn around to the rickshawala and say, listen, for every story that we sell, because it's your story, you'll get something. So give me, where do I send you money? So give me something. So that's the way I would like to kind of, you know, it's like, for instance, I reached out, I had a message from an actor on TV, and they wanted me to help them write something because they'd read one of my books. So I said, okay, well, you know, I said, I've never co-authored. I don't know what that's like, but that might be interesting, you know. So I think I love to meet interesting people that struggle every day. You know, the man that goes, there's a storm, and he goes out and his paddy fields are ruined. His entire rice crop is gone. But he's still there next year and he survived. How did he survive? What did he do to survive? That's a story. There's a story right there. What did you have to do to survive? Your whole crop was wiped out. That was your income for the whole year, gone. In one storm, it was gone.
Or in flood, yeah.
You know? To me, that's a story worth telling because it's a story of survival, you know? And that's what I like. I like stories of survival more than anything else, where people survive hard times and come out the other side. Sometimes weaker, sometimes stronger. You know?
Azik bhai, writing in Bangladeshi setting, that is one thing. Another thing is that while writing, do you consider Bangladeshi people or Bangladeshi reader as your target reader? Or, while writing, I mean,
fortunately,
whatever the plot is.
Yeah, if I'm really honest, I would say that I probably don't. And the reason I don't is because I don't really understand the style of writing in Bangladesh. I don't understand. See, when I watch the Natok on YouTube, I see that it's a very emotional, knee-jerk kind of thing. The humor is quite often just two men with bad teeth cackling in a corner or something. And I think, okay, that's one aspect. That's to entertain people. That's just to entertain people. That's not to kind of to ask them questions about society, for instance. You know, but that's just to entertain. And I get that. And I get
just making fun.
That has an entertainment value. But what I don't really know is what sort of stories Bangladeshi people like to read. Now, that's a really broad question. That's a really broad. But what I say in that is that I don't know the style. So, for example, do they enjoy romanticism? Do they enjoy fiction? Do they enjoy thrillers? Do they enjoy drama? What do they enjoy is what I don't know. But what I try to do in everything I write is be respectful of my background. What I mean by that is I try not to use language that will offend, because I have a feeling it would upset Abba if I did. So
But Azik bhai, sometimes lack of knowledge sometimes gives you more freedom. You're free to write whatever you think.
I think so. As I said to you, when we first started this over an hour ago now, I love reading, but I don't read too much now. I used to read all the time. And the reason I don't read too much now is that even if I was to kind of use the words and other writers used, I can put my hand on my heart and say, that was an accident. I didn't do it on purpose, you know. And that's what I'm scared of, is that I have the words. Every day. So sometimes I watch more movies now. And the reason I watch more movies is that movies tell a story in a short space of time. So you kind of look at the movie and you think about that and you think, how did they convey going from the crime scene to catching the villain? How did they convey that in just 3 minutes? You know, so what you try to encapsulate in that is that you try to kind of say, okay, so quite often when I write, I actually visualize it in a film form, if you know what I mean. So I kind of think of it as if it were, you know, the only thing lacking is the backing music, but otherwise that's how I tend. But no, I don't really. I do try to be respectful, just in case a Bangladeshi person was to pick up my book and just see too much bad language or something like that, you know. So I try to do that. So, but otherwise, no, I don't. I'd love to have. I mean, you know, you and I were messaging each other a couple of months ago about you translating maybe The Refugee or something like that. You know, I'd love my book to get a readership in Bangladesh, because the way I view it is that actually, if you is like, you know, Bangladesh is 250 million people.
Yeah.
It's if you can actually get a readership in Bangladesh, that actually leads me to another thing. I think one of the things that you mentioned in a message to me before this was, how do Bangladeshi people, or how do Bangladeshi writers go out into the wider platform?
That was the question actually I was about to ask you.
Yeah, I think there is something here that needs help. So, for instance, you know, to publish a book, and so the help has to be that there has to be quality translation services that need to be available in Bangladesh. So there has to be that, but there also has to be a willingness for the government of Bangladesh to see literature and the arts as a viable industry, not just textiles, but it has to see literature and art as a viable industry. And when the government gives its backing to that as an industry, then that industry can really grow. No country's the biggest influence on any country's economy is its government. The government has the power to make an industry great or break an industry. So the government has that power. I look at things, and I look at it from, because my work when I'm not writing is as a business analyst. So I work with companies to show how they can actually improve their business. So one of the ways that you improve your business is how you get yourself out there on social media, how you expose the writers in the Bangladeshi community, how you join other groups, literary groups, and let them know that there's the Hay Festival happening in Bangladesh or whatever, you know. So it's about creating partnerships with other people abroad, in America or in Europe. And, you know, because some Bangladeshi writers have had their books translated. And so it does work, but it needs to work the other way as well, where there can be an influx of books coming into Bangladesh that comes in from the West or whatever. And so, and there are books, but one of the things that I was talking to Amma about this, she goes, you know, a book in England cost £10. That's like 1,000 taka. She said not many people would spend 1,000 taka on a book in Bangladesh, you know. So that's where you have to. So for the so what I'm saying is that if a book in Bangladesh costs £10 and a Bangladeshi writer can have a bestseller, then the appeal for the government is the tax revenue on that book, you know. So the government needs to play a part in exposing Bangladeshi art in all its forms, just as India does. India has a great art platform, and the government of India support its artists, but I don't think the Bangladeshi government supports its artists in the same way. And I think until it does, you could be limited, because it's just the activities of a handful of people rather than a big effort, you know.
Azik
Yeah.
bhai, one thing you said that quality translations. Yes, that is
Yeah.
must. And another thing is that
Yeah.
if European publishers or
Yeah.
American publishers,
Yeah.
so how do we get that? I mean, that international publishers. Quality translation, if we do
Well, this.
quality translation, that's one thing. And how to
Yeah.
reach them? How to attain the international publishers or
Way
agencies?
the UK is that you have to first of all get a literary agent. Very few publishers now accept direct manuscripts,
Yeah,
so you have to get a literary agent, and there are a handful out there. Um, there's quite a lot out there that you have to find a good one, or you have to find one that's dealt with Asian publishers.
mm,
And this is where you might go to someone that's already published in Europe and ask them that question: is that who do you deal with? What do you do?
I mean,
How do you?
quality translation is not all what I think,
Well,
because we got
what I mean by quality translation means that there's a written English and there's a spoken English, and
yeah,
depending, spoken English is a bit like in Dhaka when I go to buy fruit and veg with Jewel, and I don't understand what the man is saying because he's speaking a language behind who's selling me mangoes or or whatever, and he's
yeah,
speaking a language so fast, so quick, I don't know what he's saying. Try to write that in Bangla. Try to write what he said, not what you might say. So try to write what he says in Bangla. So in the same way in English, you can write correct English, but it's correct, but colloquially it's wrong because people don't speak like that. And that's
yeah.
what I mean by quality translation, that you have to translate it in a language that's spoken by the people, not a language that is more like Charles Dickens or, something like that, because that's not the language that is spoken. In the same way that 90% of all Bangladeshis don't speak the language of Rabindranath Tagore, they just
Yeah,
speak a language, and that language gets changed, and words get shortened, and some words get lengthened, and some words are just not said at all. You know, so it's that same thing that sometimes it's that thing where I might say something to you and you'll just look at me, and your look will give me all the answers I want because it's in that look. So quality translation, and you can just, I think, for instance, you don't, and that's what it's about. The quality translation means is that, have you captured the essence of that look, just the essence of that look and what that look infers. But it is about speaking a language that people use, not a language that people had to study to pass an exam.
Azik
So
bhai,
there's a difference.
I think we need some translators who
Yeah,
know, some translator who know both languages. But
yeah, you
it
do.
would be better
I mean,
if the translator belonged to European or American country. I mean, not a native Bengali
yeah,
writer or translator, someone native American, native Canadian, or native British, but he knows English
yeah,
better. Bangla well.
yeah. There's two things that can be done. There's two ways to do this. So, for instance, you might get it first translated into English in Bangladesh. So you can get your book translated into English in Bangladesh. And there's probably, you can go to a second or third year BA honours student who's studying English to do that for you, and pay them something, and they'll do a good job. They'll do a relatively good job. Then you can send that translation to a translator you can send it to many translators you could send it to me even if you wanted. If I had time, I'd look at it. So what I would look at then is look at that language, look at that translation and say, well, nobody would ever say that. Nobody would ever say that. This is what they would say. So, you know, translation doesn't have to be word for word. This is the one thing I've learned about translation, that it doesn't have to be word for word. As long as it captures the action, as long as it captures the reaction, then the translation is good, because it's about capturing the mood, the moment, what the question is, what the answer is, what you do with that answer, and all of those things around it. You know, so you could, the first thing you could do is to get a first line translation done by you know, by a Bangladeshi English speaking person. Then you can send it to an English speaking person who speaks English in a colloquial way, and ask them to look at that, and then to do a sort of, to check, is it reasonable, or, you know, do people talk like, or have I just taken something straight out of Jane Austen, you know? So you kind of have to say, like, for instance, I'm helping a guy who's writing a book, and he used the word, and he purveyed is to look around. Okay, he purveyed the scene around him. And I looked at him and I said, I don't think I've seen the word purvey. I think the last time I saw it was in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I said, I think I saw it in that. I said, so you're using a language that's being used in 1875 or something. I said, what makes you think that people talk like that, you know? And so he kind of said, oh, okay, you know. So it's about that reality check. Is this language too flowery? Is this language just not right? And if you can get a story across that actually captures that language in the way that an English person would see it and would understand it, then they would, because somebody said to me once that when you start reading a book, if you're not hooked by the first page, then you're likely never to finish the book. So what I'm trying to say is that the language has to be right, even if it's just the first page. This language has to be right, you know. So yes. No, you want to do more, but you know, I just say, if you want
you mentioned,
just say, I'll just do the first.
Azik, you mentioned Dickens, right? In my previous interview, you said that Dickens is your favorite writer. So who are other writers? Who are other writers that you want to mention?
Well, I think the reason I love Dickens is that he writes about people that struggle. He writes about struggling people and how they come through those struggles and come out the other side as better human beings. And I think that, because I started reading Dickens when I was very young, you know, and I read Treasure Island, Robert Louis Stevenson, and I read.
My favorite.
So what I've got, Brick Lane, Monica Ali's Brick Lane on here. I've got all sorts of books. I've got books galore everywhere. So, you know, at the moment I was reading a book on Churchill, Winston Churchill. I've got a book called Berlin. It's the downfall of Berlin in 1945. What else have I got? I've got Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and all of those things. I've got a book on the people that fought Muhammad Ali. What was their reaction, you know, after he hit. Yeah, so I've got that book. I've got Khaled Hosseini's And the Mountain Echoed. I think I've got a few things by Khaled Hosseini. Yeah.
You mentioned his name too. You liked him.
Yeah, the Thousand Splendid Suns. I've got that. Yeah, so there's a lot of people I like. Some books I read once and I can't read them again because they're too hard to read, in so much as they emotionally they drain me. And The Kite Runner was one of those stories that absolutely I was drained at the end of it. It took me on such an emotional journey.
Yeah, same thing happened with me.
You know, and so they're hard to. It's a hard book to, because you love it and you want to know what's happened, you know, and you want to know all of that. And The Mountains Echoed, you know, when she gets beheaded and all of those things, and you just like want to know, and you hope that they're going to be all right. And you just keep hoping they're going to be all right, you know. And so from that point of view, the journey of reading that book, my God, you know, the journey of reading. So I used to be at work, and at lunchtime, people just go and have lunch. I'd go and find a quiet space and just read, you know, while I was eating my food or whatever. Some book, yeah. So I like Dickens because I think he always wrote about people that struggled and came out the other side, either as better human beings or having learnt some kind of lesson in life. And I think that's why I like him, because his works, if you think about his work, it's strange, but when you look at certain things, especially in countries like Bangladesh and countries like India, countries like Pakistan, where, you know, a small percentage of the population has all the wealth.
Yeah.
Dickens's work is actually feels real in those settings where a small percentage of people have all the wealth. The things that Dickens writes, you know, feels real. It feels like economically those countries are still going through a Dickensian period, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but Dickens is my favorite by far. That's probably my favorite.
Azik
You
bhai,
know, and yeah.
do you write every day? I mean, you sit every day at your table to write or read something.
I write. Yeah,
It's a
I
routine
do.
work to
I
you.
write. No, I don't. Sometimes I'll write for an hour. Sometimes I'll write for 4. Sometimes I'll write the whole day. But I try to write every day. I've written some poems as well, and but you know, poems is not my thing. But I just wanted to write poems because poems are easier to write, especially if you're traveling. You know, you're on a bus or a train. You see something and you can write a poem about that quite quickly. I carry a notebook with me and a pen everywhere I go. And so I have a book. I have 2 notebooks full of poems that I've written over
Oh,
6
then you
years.
are a poet.
Yeah. No, I don't think I am, because I don't think I am, but I'll write something. I'll just see if I can find one. I'll just see if I can. So I wrote one. Where are my notebooks? Just hold on one moment, because I've got notebooks everywhere. If I can find them. Let's see now. Let's see. What have I got? What have I got? No, they're not here. I'm not sure, but I'll send you one of
You
them
can
at
share
some point.
1 or 2 your poems if you want to.
Yeah, I'll share one. I mean, I wrote a poem, you know, just a very brief one, about, because I live far away from my Amma and Bubu. So, you know, I just wrote, I can't remember exactly what I said in it, but it was something like, you know, brothers and sisters. I just called it brothers and sisters because I was thinking of my
Yeah.
sister on the day I wrote it. And I just said, can I see you? No, I'm busy today. Do you remember when we used to play? We played all the time. Yes, I remember when we played. When can I see you? I'm not sure when you can see me. I'd like to play again. Call me again later. Something like that. I wrote something like that. It was about how in our time the best thing about this lockdown has been that we've had more time with our family. And I think sometimes life is so busy we forget that time with our family. And that was all I was trying to portray in that is that when we were children, we played all the time. We never made excuses not to see each other. But now the excuses are easier than just to play.
Yeah.
So it
But
becomes
Azik bhai,
easier just to make the excuse. Yeah.
I forgot to ask you one thing.
Carry on.
What is your third novel all about?
Yeah.
Your third novel. I was to ask you, but I forgot.
Okay. So I don't feel too much, but
if you want to share the plot or anything about that particular novel.
So you guys obviously know what a rhinoceros is, right? Now, a rhinoceros, I saw this program on TV about the last 3 northern white rhinos. You still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the last 3 northern white rhinos, and in 2019, the last male northern white rhino died. Rhinos have been, so at the beginning of the 20th century, there were 500,000 rhinos on this planet. As of 2014, there was something like 5,000 left. This is what man has done because of the rhino horn trade and all of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to write a story about that. And I've had to do so much research about how rhinos live, how long they stay with their mother, what kind of infections they get. I've had to do all this research. I've been to libraries. Yeah, I found out that baby rhinoceros. Yeah, so baby rhinoceroses get bacterial intestinal problems, and that can kill them because you know, the duodenum, the small stomach, can just hemorrhage and things like that. So I'm learning all this stuff. But what I've done with this book is that I've actually given the animals voices. I've given them voices. I've allowed them to talk. I've allowed them to say things to each other in a much simplistic way. You know, I'll just give you one line that when the animal hero in my book meets the person that's going to look after him, they kind of get to know each other. Rhinos have very bad eyesight, by the way. They have very bad eyesight, but they know by smell. They can tell you by smell, and they form this friendship, and kind of a friendship, you know, whatever, however you want to call it. And they sit there talking, and not talking as in the general sense. The human talks and the rhino sniffs or makes a sound or whatever. So it's a conversation in that way. So the human imagines the answer that he's getting back. So he asks the rhino, what do you want? What would you like to do? What's your real name? What did your mother call you? Is it in a language that nobody can understand? And the rhino comes over to him and he starts to stroke the rhino, and the rhino breathes out hard. And in that moment, I wrote that he can feel the answers, that all the rhino wants is freedom and to see his mother. And so he feels the answer. In that breath, he feels the answer. You know. So this is the story that's taking place. I'm hoping that my oldest son, Daniel, is going to help me do some edits, because I made some mistakes with my first 2 books. My oldest son, Daniel, specializes in languages. He speaks, his English is absolutely impeccable, but he also speaks Spanish and French. So, yeah. So he's very good. So he's going to help me with the edits and everything else, because I just want to make sure that it goes out. There are no errors, nothing like that. The errors weren't mine, by the way, but so I just want to make sure that everything is correct before it goes out. But this book has been another one where I've had to do a lot of research, you know, about the habitat. I can tell you the skeleton of a rhinoceros, you know.
So we are going to have an interesting book. Where I can bet it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a child's book. That's
what I'm asking. Who are the target readers?
Well, it is a book. Yeah. It's not like one of these, like, you know,
young adults, or
young children's book, because it deals with the actual act of poaching and how they do it, and it's graphic in that sense. It's bloody and it's graphic in that sense, you know. So it's not, unless your children you know, work killing cattle all day long, I wouldn't let them read this book, you know. You know? So yeah, it's not a children's book in that sense. It is an adult book. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, it's been a lot of work. Just the research alone has been a lot of work. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Azik, I'm sure that it would be huge fun reading that novel. But you are such a writer who writes not to make fun only, right? So maybe there are some serious issues or allegory that you want to mention in that story.
Of course there is. Yeah, there's always serious issues. There's always serious issues. There's issues of corruption. There's issues of just not giving a damn about other species. There's a line I write in the book which says, you know, who gave man the right to take away the dreams of other species? Who gave man that right to do that?
Nobody.
You know, and I question, because it is, you know, whether you like it or not, you know, animals have society.
Yeah.
Animals live in societies. Animals have culture. Animals have all of that. And just because it's different to ours, it doesn't make it any less important. You know? And why are there rhinos on this planet? Rhinos have been on this planet for 50 million years, Giles. They're the oldest, one of the oldest animals on our planet.
On that planet.
What gave humans who have been on this planet for 1 million years the right to kill another animal that's been here for 50 million years? You know, we have that same argument about America. Let's just one thing about America. America turned around, you know, and when Donald Trump says America is for the Americans, well, in that case, it's for the Native Americans, because they're the only true Americans there. You know, the Native Americans in America are the only true Americans. So if you're going to say America's for the Americans, then all of you lot who came from Denmark and from Germany and from England and
Columbus went there, and the native, you know, established.
So you don't really belong there. So if you're saying America is for the Americans, give it back to the Native Americans, because it's not yours. And that's the point I make, is that quite the parallel I try to draw on that is that to say, what gave humans the right to destroy a species? What gave us that right? And why are they here? They must be here for a reason. You know, if you believe in Allah, as I do, if you believe in God, if you believe in Jehovah, if you're Jewish, if you're Christian, if you're whatever you are, whatever you believe in, all of those holy books mention Noah's Ark. He saved the animals. So, for instance, so why are we so hell bent on killing the animals? You know, what is it? Why did Noah save a rhinoceros? What did he see in a rhinoceros that we can't see today? You know?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to read that novel.
Just
I'm eagerly waiting.
Yeah.
Because,
you know, like, because
the story itself is intriguing.
Yeah, because I'm writing this novel, I feel quite emotional about the subject matter. Maybe when the novel's finished, I'll feel less emotional. So.
But that is different plot. Because the previous two novels, it's different plot.
Yeah, I don't want to ever write the same thing again and again. And, you know, I don't want to write the same thing. In my mind, I have the idea of a fourth novel, which I've written just in notes. I've got 50 pages of notes. My biggest problem is not sleeping at night, because I wake up in the middle of the night and there's a pen and a piece of paper next to my bed, and I just start scribbling. And then the next morning I look at it and I think, what the hell did I scribble? I don't know. So, you know, what was that?
But Azik bhai, I'm very happy to know. I'm very happy to know that. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I think that I, you know, like I said to you, I think, yes, I probably have some chance, because of Amma, because of my grandfather, of wanting to tell stories. I have some chance of being able to tell a story. You know, whether they're good or bad has to be judged by others.
Yeah,
I'll never say I wrote something good. I'll always say I could have done better. So, you know, and that's really all it is that I'm going to keep trying to write stories because I enjoy doing it. It's kind of, it gives, I said earlier in the interview, it gives another side of my brain time to repair the side of my brain that's working hard. And, you know, so because I think you have two sides of the brain, you have the artistic and the logic. My dad was a very logical person, or he claimed to be very logical. Abba was very logical. He always claimed he was the most logical person in the world. But actually, he was quite emotional. He was quite emotional. And so, so I just think that Amma has that ability to write, but her ability has been proven. My ability is yet to be proven, you know. So, and that's the point, is that I don't think I'm good. I think I have good ideas, but if I put them, I don't know if I put them down on paper good enough for someone to say that's a nice literary piece. You know, I don't know that yet. That maybe that day will come, and even then, I'll keep thinking I could have done that better. I really could have done that better.
But you are doing well with your first
because
novel.
Do you not sometimes look back and think, you know, I really could have done with making that a bit more detailed? That description should have been a bit more detailed. You know, you always have that kind of, but then there's a point, I think you just have to say, oh no, I can't keep going back to it, because if I keep going back to it, I'll just, my head will explode. So, you know, you just got to let it go at some point, you know.
But Azik bhai, I'm very happy to know that your first novel, A Muslim Boy, is doing well in the market, because the second edition is already in the market.
It's still doing well. I mean, the thing is, what I haven't done, believe it or not, I've not promoted it at all. It's just all been word of mouth. I've not done one bit of promotional work on either of my books. I intend to, but I intend to do that, but I'm not sure when I'll get round to doing it. You know, because while we're in this lockdown, it may not be appropriate to do marketing, because I think the last thing, yeah.
I want to see the cover of the book to my viewers. This one, the second novel, The Refugee.
Oh, just the other thing.
The first one I kept at my office desk.
Just one thing.
Yeah, Azik bhai, yeah, please.
Yeah, that I drew the cover myself, so it was something I did myself. So yeah, the artwork. I did that artwork.
Oh, you also did the first novel cover, right? The first edition cover. It changed the cover.
Well, I did the second.
Why that?
Second edition cover. Yeah. I changed cover because the first edition cover was a little bit. Look, if you looked at it, you might think it's a child's book. You know, because of the picture, it was more cartoon-like in that first cover. Yeah. The second edition, I wanted to show that it wasn't a child's book, you know. So I had this much more serious look about it. But so I did both the second edition cover I painted, and then the first edition cover I painted. So, yeah.
Azik bhai, we are almost at the end of the talk. Maybe the last question. Because 2 hours we spent. What is your writing goals now? What are the goals that you?
What is my what? Sorry, say that again.
Ahead of? What are the writing goals that you set ahead of you? Because I started with the question that you started late.
My goal. Yeah, my goal isn't really. Amma asked me this question. She said, you know, are you writing because you want to be famous or anything else like that? And I never really was worried about anything like that. I wanted to write because I thought I had stories to tell. I think my aims are to have us, because it keeps your mind, I think it exercises your mind to think of new things. That's the other part of it, is that I think I'd like to, my goal for writing, I have just one really simple goal.
Yeah.
I'd like to sit near a person that's reading one of my books, and maybe they're getting to the end of it.
Yeah.
And just to hear them say, boy, that was a good story. And that's my goal, really. But yeah, just for someone to without knowing that I was sitting just 10 feet away from them, for them to say that I enjoyed that, you know. So something like that, something that simple is really, you know, somebody said, if you ever made it as a writer and you had lots of money, what would you do? I said, I'd probably become a recluse, you know.
Oh.
You know, I just become very recluse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was the appeal. The appeal was that I thought I had a story I could write. The journey's been hard though, Mojaffor, because I've made mistakes in what I've written and I've had to correct them. And I think with the third book, I just want to avoid those mistakes, because I think you have to be, and this is where I go back to that thing, good translation. A bad translation could put a whole bunch of readers off.
Yeah.
You know? So a good translation will bring them in. And so I know I make mistakes with my first and second book, and I have to live with those mistakes, and they're embarrassing. And I have to live with those mistakes. So I'm just hoping that in the third book that there are no mistakes. I'm being super careful. Yeah, I just want to write a good story that people enjoy. That's really my ambition. That's it. As long as somebody enjoys it, then, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, if they enjoy it and if it helps them in any way, if it helps someone to kind of see, okay, all right, listen, I deal with that. I can deal with that, because, you know, and that's why I try to write fiction in a real way, not imagined fiction or something like that. That's not to say that what I mean is that when you write, if your reaction in an argument or in a scene or a scene of intimacy, I try to make that real as possible. I don't try to over dramatize or anything like that. And sometimes I'll actually write, he had nothing else to say and just walked away. And I think that might be a good ending for the interview. I have nothing else to say.
But your style,
Yeah.
writing style, you go a vivid way. You portrays a character, you take time and explain it. That's the form you are used to.
You're breaking up rather bad. Sorry, say that again.
I said that you, your prose, you go detail to depict your character. You love to go in the detail. That's what I want to say. Vivid picture you like to portray.
Detail of my character.
Yeah.
I try to not go too detailed into my characters. I'll say that they're so tall, or they're this, that, and the other, because I think one of the great things about books, format they in, so that can be an it can be something else, is that part of it is down to the reader's imagination, you know.
Yeah.
So I think you can be, although I watch movies, I'd never try to show in detail what a movie shows, because you're actually doing you're doing your reader's thinking for them. And to some degree, you have to give the reader enough
for the
material.
readers,
you have to give them a little bit less so they can use their imagination, you know. So for instance, if a man or a woman is looking for a heroine or a wife or something, and you write about that, and you can let them imagine that that's the person for them, and they can say that she has dark hair, she has, you know, she's so tall, etc., or he's like this and he's like that. So I think what I try to do is to give details about characteristic, not the physical stature of a person, because I think what I try to do there is to say, look, this guy is he's very religious, he's very wealthy, and he thinks he's the king of everything, and you know, he's very arrogant, or he's this, he's that. And so I try to create the character rather than the physical characteristics.
psychological side.
They are as important to a reader. Yeah, It's, and if you know that this guy, because once you've created that character and you did his persona or her persona, you're able then to gauge reaction, you know. And what I mean by reaction is if you are in an argument and you've got someone that's very arrogant and angry, you kind of almost know how they're going.
Hello, Asif bhai, you are stuck.
React.
আচ্ছা, আমাদের কিছু প্রশ্ন ছিল, কিন্তু এখন যেহেতু আমরা 1 ঘন্টা মনে করেছিলাম যে 1 ঘন্টা কথা বলবো, কিন্তু 2 ঘন্টা হয়ে গেছে, ফলে এখন আমরা কোনো অনেকেই আমার ইনবক্সে টেক্সট করেছেন, কিছু কিছু প্রশ্ন আমরা পেয়েছি, সেগুলো আর সম্ভব হচ্ছে না। আজিক ভাই কোনো সমস্যায় পড়েছেন হয়তো, তিনি আসলেই আমরা বিদায় নিতে চাই। আমি তো তাকে শুরুতেই কনভিন্স করেছিলাম যে আমরা হয়তো 30 মিনিট কথা বলবো, কারণ হি ইজ বিজি আউট দেয়ার, কিন্তু এখন মনে হচ্ছে যে 2 ঘন্টা সময় কিভাবে কেটে গেল আমরা টেরই পেলাম না। আজিক ভাই, আর ইউ দেয়ার? হ্যাঁ।
Hello, sorry, Mojaffor. I think my internet was playing up a little. I'm sorry about that. But yeah,
It's all right.
just
Okay.
going back to that point. Yeah, I just try to focus on the yeah. Is that all for now?
Azik bhai,
You have any more questions?
so many questions to ask, but
Yeah.
you know it's not possible in one night, so we have to start.
No,
we
of
have to
course
stop
not. But
somewhere
we can
at
do
some
another
point.
one of these. Yeah, I think if you want to do another one of these in the future, I think maybe it's an idea to ask people that have viewed this what the questions they'd like to ask. Send me those questions beforehand, and maybe we can do another hour or something, and just answering the questions that other people may.
I think we have many questions.
I'm more than to do that, because this gives me great exposure as well.
Azik bhai, we have received so many questions, especially in my inbox. Facebook.
It's very bad.
Bad, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We have received so many questions.
We can do another session.
Yeah. You can see some of them in the live section, Facebook comment section, and some of them are posted into my messenger. So I will share you later this question. But before end, I would like to.
Thank you. No problem. I'd love to.
I'd like to say good wishes to your upcoming novel and novels to come. I think we'll go have so many novels from you in the future.
Yeah.
So you gave me your valuable time.
Inshallah, it will happen.
Azik bhai,
you cut out completely there.
Azik bhai, আপনি আমাদের বাংলাদেশ থেকে যারা শুনলো তাদের উদ্দেশ্যে কিছু বলেন।
আচ্ছা, আমি চেষ্টা করব বাংলায় বলতে। আমার বাংলা বেশি ভালো না, বিকজ আমি লজ্জা পাই। আমি যখন বাংলা বলি আমি একটু লজ্জা পাই, বিকজ আমার বাংলা হইলে it becomes Banglish, which is half Bangla, half English. So কিন্তু যদি আপনাদের কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন আছে, প্লিজ ask, connect me on Facebook. You can ask me directly. We'll do another show. We'll do another show with Mojaffor. This has been great, because some of the questions has made me think. They've made me really think. Maybe I should visit Bangladesh more. You know, I'd hate to become an alien in my own in the country of my birth, and maybe to fix that problem that some of the questions have really made me think about about things. So, but I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this very much, and inshallah, we'll all see you soon. Okay.
I think one thing I want to say, we have a common thing. Your English, your Bangla and my English, that equals. Can you hear me?
অনেক সময় ইকুয়াল, কিন্তু আমি তো লজ্জা পাই, সেই জন্য আমি আমার চাচা কানাডায়, মন্টু চাচা, সবসময় আমরা কথা বলি at least once every 2 weeks, sometimes once a week. উনি অনেক সময় বলে যে বলো না কেন, কিন্তু মানে স্ট্রাগল করি আমি বাংলা বলতে, বিকজ আমার মানে এতদিন আমি ইংলিশ বলি যে যখন আমি বাংলা বলতে চাই তখন আমি কতগুলো মুখের মধ্যে বসে থাকে। তো আমি চিন্তা করতে হবে যে আমি এটা কেমন করে আমি বলবো, এই আর সবসময় না, মানে যখন আমি বাংলা মানুষের সঙ্গে কথা বলি ওদের মনে যে আমি যখন হেজিটেট করি, they may think idiot, but কিন্তু it's the translation process that I have to go through. So I can say something easily in English, কিন্তু যখন আমি বাংলা বলতে চেষ্টা করি তখন আমাকে স্ট্রাগল করতে হয়। সেইটাই আমি বলতে চাই যে, and I don't want people to think he's become so westernized. I am westernized, that's true, কিন্তু after 3 days in Dhaka I speak Bangla like a Bengali. So it comes back to me quickly.
You said that you are happily rooted as a Bangladeshi Englishman in my previous interview.
Very good. Okay,
that's all for tonight here and to evening there, I think, in London. Azik bhai,
okay,
so আমার মনে হয়
take care, Mojaffor. I'll speak to you soon.
Stay safe, stay home, and stay safe and sound. Wish you all the best, all the luck. Okay, bye bye.
Yeah.
Azik bhai, আপনি লিভ বাটনে প্রেস করলে আপনি বের হয়ে যাবেন. If you press the leave button there, bye bye.
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে. Yeah. Okay.
আপনি গেছি 2 ঘন্টা 12 মিনিট. That's the time. You can see the video. আচ্ছা, আজিক চৌধুরীর সম্পর্কে আমি আর 2-1টি কথা বলেই আপনাদের কাছ থেকে বিদায় নিই, যে আমি তার 2টি উপন্যাস পড়েছি, বিশেষ করে যেটি নিয়ে আমরা কথা বললাম আজকে শুরুতেই, মুসলিম বয়, যেটা তার সেমি অটোবায়োগ্রাফিক্যাল উপন্যাস। লন্ডনে মুক্তিযুদ্ধের পরে একটা ফ্যামিলি, একটা মুসলিম পরিবার গিয়ে যে ধরনের সংকটের মধ্যে পড়ে, বিশেষ করে একটা গ্রোয়িং আপ বয়, সেই বিষয়গুলো আছে, কিন্তু সেখানে অনেকগুলো কালচারাল এবং রিলিজিয়াস ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড থেকে আসা বেশ কয়েকজন ছেলের স্টোরি। আসলে শুধুমাত্র যে শান্তি যে বাংলাদেশ থেকে যায় তার না, ভারত থেকে আসে, বিভিন্ন দেশ থেকে আসে। তো সেই বেশ একটা দীর্ঘ পরিসরের উপন্যাস তিনি লিখেছেন প্রথমেই, সেটা মুসলিম বয়, যেটা ভেরি রিসেন্টলি সেকেন্ড এডিশন মার্কেটে এসেছে আমাজন থেকে। এরপর তার 2য় উপন্যাস, যেটা আমি একেবারে শেষের দিকে আছি, রেফিউজি। এই উপন্যাসটি যেটা আজিক ভাই বললেনও, যে তিনি বিভিন্ন সময় এই রেফিউজিদের বিষয়ে কাজ করেছেন বিভিন্ন সংগঠনের সঙ্গে। তারপর তিনি একটা বড় রকম হোমওয়ার্ক করে, তার উপন্যাসের লেখার প্যাটার্নটা এটা, যে তিনি একটা বড় রকম হোমওয়ার্ক করে তারপর সেটা লেখেন, যেটা তিনি তার 3rd নভেলের কথা বললেন যে সেটা তিনি করছেন, এবং হি ইজ অলমোস্ট এট দ্য এন্ড অফ দ্য নভেল। আর আজিক ভাইয়ের ব্যাপারটা হলো যে আজিক ভাইয়ের সঙ্গে আমার পরিচয়ের কারণ মানে আমার এই ভিডিও শোতে করার কারণ আমি আসলে তো এটা অভ্যস্ত না, মোটেও না। কিন্তু আজিক ভাইকে ঢাকাতে খুব কম মানুষ চেনেন। আমি সবসময় বলি যে আমাদের যারা বাংলাদেশী বাইরে থেকে লেখালেখি করছেন, পাশাপাশি বাংলাদেশী থেকে যারা ইংরেজিতে লেখালেখি করছেন, তা আমাদের পরস্পরকে একটা চেনা জানার মধ্যে গ্যাপ আছে। তো আমার মনে হলো যে আজিক ভাইকে যদি একটু ইন্ট্রোডিউস করাই, আপনাদের কেউ হয়তো আগ্রহী হবেন তার বিষয়ে। আবার তাকেও যদি আমাদের ব্যাপারে একটু আগ্রহী করে তুলতে পারি, উনি হতে পারে বাংলাদেশের সেটিং থেকে প্রেক্ষাপট থেকে উপন্যাস লিখছেন বা লেটার অন ইন দ্য নিয়ার ফিউচার তিনি নিজেও যদি কখনো চান কোনো লেখা অনুবাদ করতে ইংরেজিতে, সেটাও পারবেন। আর আজিক চৌধুরীর সঙ্গে আমার পরিচয়ের সূত্রপাত সালেহা চৌধুরীর মাধ্যমে। কারণ আমি কয়েকবার বলেছি যে তিনি সালেহা চৌধুরীর সন্তান। সালেহা চৌধুরী আ ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটিতে শিক্ষকতা করছিলেন যখন ৭২ সালে লন্ডনে যান তার স্বামীর কর্মসূত্রে। তখন আজিকের বয়স ৬-৭ বছর হবে। মেবি আজিকের জন্ম সম্ভবত 66 এ। তারপর তারা চলে যান ওখানে। এরপর আজিক মাঝে মাঝে এসেছেন, কিন্তু ঢাকাতে ঠিক যে অর্থে বলা যায় যে দীর্ঘদিন থাকা বা এই ধরনের উনি থাকেননি। যে কারণে তার একটা কালচারাল গ্যাপ তৈরি হয়েছে। তিনি দেখলেন যে তিনি বাংলা খুব ভালো বলতে পারেন না। মানে আমি যেরকম ইংরেজি বলতে পারি না, বললাম খুঁড়িয়ে তার কারণে। কারণ শোটা চালাতে গেলে আসলে আমাকে সামহাউ তার সাথে কমিউনিকেট করতে হতো। কারণ তিনি বাংলাতে এত কথা বলতে পারতেন না। তো আজিক ভাই, এই কারণে আমি আজিক ভাইকে শোতে আজকে আনলাম। আর আশা করি যে তার মতো যারা আমার জানা আছেন, মানে বাইরে থেকে লেখালেখি করছেন, বাংলাদেশি অরিজিন, বাংলাদেশি বট অফ আউটসাইড দ্য কান্ট্রি। তাদের ২-১ জনকে যদি তারা আমার সাথে এগ্রি করেন, তাদেরকে আমি আনবো তাদের সঙ্গে এই ধরনের কোনো কনভারসেশন এ যাবো, যেটা আ হেল্প করবে, আমাদের এই অর্থে সাহায্য করবে যে আ we'll be able to know each other। আরেকটা ব্যাপার হলো যে তাদেরকে আমাদের সম্পর্কে আগ্রহী করা। একই সঙ্গে আমরা জানতে পারবো যে আমাদের সম্পর্কে বা আমাদের যারা এখান থেকে যারা গেছেন তারা লেখালেখি করছেন কেমন করে। যেমন আমি ২-১ জনের কথা বলি। আপনাদের ২ ঘন্টা হয়ে গেছে, আমার মনে হয় যারা শুনছেন। না হলে আমি এটা রেকর্ড থাকছে এই অর্থে বলছি ২-১ টি কথা। যেমন আমার খুব আগ্রহ ছিল গালিব ইসলামের প্রতি, যে তিনি নাইজেরিয়া হয়ে কানাডায় গেছেন তার পরিবারের সঙ্গে, এবং ওখানে তিনি যে উপন্যাসটা লিখেছেন আম সেটি ওখানে কানাডার মেইনস্ট্রিম এ বেশ আলোড়ন তুলেছে, এবং মার্গারেট অ্যাটউড এর মতো লেখক সেটি অ্যাপ্রিশিয়েট করেছেন। তারপর এরকম সরি আ তো এই ধরনের যারা লেখক আছেন, যেমন আমি সম্প্রতি একটু পড়ছি দিলরুবা জেডারার উপন্যাসগুলো। তার তিনি সুইডেনে থাকেন। তো তিনিও বেশ ভালোভাবে, তার প্রেক্ষাপট অবশ্য বাংলাদেশ। তিনি বাংলাদেশ প্রেক্ষাপটে লিখেছেন। তিনি শাহেদ আলীর মেয়েও কথাসাহিত্যিক। তিনি বাংলাটা ভালোভাবেই জানেন, এবং তিনি বলা যায় যে কয়েকটি ভাষা এক্সপার্ট, সুইডিশ, ইংরেজি এবং বাংলা। বাংলা ভাষায় শুরুতে লেখালেখি করেছেন। তো এই ধরনের আরো অনেকেই আছেন। মানে সবার নাম বলা এখন সময় নেই। কিন্তু আমি বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম যে যারা আমাদের এখানে ইংরেজিতে লেখেন বা ইংরেজি সাহিত্য চর্চা করেন বাংলাদেশে থেকে, তারা এদের সবাইকেই আমার থেকেই ভালো চেনেন, জানেন। কিন্তু আমরা যারা ঢাকার আ বাংলাদেশের মেইনস্ট্রিমে বাংলায় লেখালেখি করি, বাংলায় পড়াশোনা করি, আমরা হয়তো যারা ইংরেজিতে লেখেন, বিদেশি রাইটার যারা খ্যাতিমান, তাদেরকে আমরা পড়ি বা চিনি। কিন্তু আমাদের দেশে যারা বাইরে থেকে কেউ শুরু করেছেন, কেউ হয়তো আ মোটামুটিভাবে দাঁড়িয়ে গেছেন। সকলকে যে চিনি এটা না, বা চিনলেও নামে মাত্র চিনি। কিন্তু তাদের সঙ্গে এই যে ফেস টু ফেস কথা বলা, একটা কনভারসেশন এর মধ্যে যাওয়া, এবং তাদেরকে বোঝা আসলে তারা কোন ধরনের মানসিকতা, নিজেদের মধ্যে কোন ধরনের আ টেনশন নিয়ে বড় হয়েছেন, বা তারা আসলে বাংলাদেশকে বা আমাদের এই সমকালীন সাহিত্যকে কি জানতে চান? মানে কিভাবে জানেন, কতটা জানেন? যেমন আজিকের কথা বলি, আজিক কিন্তু ওই অর্থে আমরা যা দেখলাম যে তিনি আমাদের সমকালীন বাংলা সাহিত্য সম্পর্কে তেমন কিছু জানেন না। কারণ তিনি যাদেরকে পড়েন তারা আসলে বাংলাদেশের সাহিত্যের যে পাঠ সেটা সবাই না। কারণ ব্রিকলেনের কথা জানি। ব্রিকলেন যে উপন্যাসটি মনিকারে লিখেছেন সেটা আসলে ব্রিটিশ সাহিত্যের অংশ। তো উনি হয়তো যারা বাংলাদেশী ডায়াসপোরা তাদেরকে পড়ার সুযোগ পেয়েছেন। খুবই কারণটা সহজ, যে বিকজ those novels are written in English। কিন্তু আমাদের যে ট্রান্সলেশন সেটা তার কাছে পৌঁছয়নি। আমি একটু আগে বলছিলাম যে তার সঙ্গে একটি কথা, যে good translations are not enough, because আপনি যদি খুব ভালো অনুবাদ হয় ঢাকা থেকে প্রকাশ করা হয় সেটা তাদের কাছে পৌঁছায় না, মানে ইউরোপিয়ান বা আমেরিকান মার্কেটে। তো একই সঙ্গে ভালো অনুবাদের সঙ্গে, সঙ্গে খুব এনশিওর করা যে অ্যা সেখানকার প্রকাশকদের কাছ থেকে বইটা বের করা যায় কিভাবে। তখন আমাদের যে ইন্টারন্যাশনালিটি যেটা আমরা বলি যে বাংলাদেশ সাহিত্যে নেই, সেইটা হয়তো আমরা অ্যাচিভ করতে পারবো। এবং সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমাদেরই যারা বিভিন্ন দেশে ছড়িয়ে ছিটিয়ে আছেন তারা অ্যা প্রত্যক্ষভাবে পরোক্ষভাবে নিশ্চয়ই আমাদের সহযোগিতা করতে পারবেন। এবং আমরা একই সঙ্গে তাদেরও পড়ার মধ্য দিয়ে তাদেরও যে আম আন্তর্জাতিক অবস্থানটা সুদৃঢ় করা, মানে আমরা তো বিভিন্ন দেশের সাহিত্য বাংলাদেশে বই আসে, আমরা তাদেরকে পড়ি। যেমন আজিকের বইগুলো ঢাকার মার্কেটে পাওয়া যায় না। তো এভাবে যদি আমরাও তাদেরকে এনে তাদেরকে ওন করি আমাদের লেখক হিসেবে, আমাদের একটা পার্ট হিসেবে, তো সেটা হয়তো আমাদের জন্য বেটার হতে পারে। I don't know. আপনাদের সকলকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই। যারা এই পুরো শোটা অথবা অংশবিশেষ শুনলেন এবং যারা এটা যেহেতু থাকবে কয়েকদিন ফেসবুকে, যারা সামনে শুনলেন সকলকে ধন্যবাদ ও কৃতজ্ঞতা জানাচ্ছি। উম আর আমার ব্যক্তিগতভাবে আমি I'm not a host. সো সেটা আমার কাজও না। আমি খুব ক্ষমা চেয়ে নিচ্ছি এই কারণে যে অ্যা যদি এই সমস্ত শোয়ের মধ্যে কোনো বিষয় খারাপ লাগে থাকে সেটা আসলে আমি নিজে দায় নিচ্ছি। আপনারা সবাই ভালো থাকবেন। সবাই সাবধানে থাকবেন।